From innocent and laughable copycats to the people that you would find on an episode of To Catch a Predator,
Why don't you have a seat?
Thank you, sir.
the history of Roblox knockoffs is pretty crazy. Spanning over a decade of games that are bad, mediocre, and decent, I'll be covering some of the most popular and infamous Roblox clones. If I've missed any big ones, or I forget to mention one, then be sure to comment down below, or even just leave a comment talking about whether or not you've played one of the games I'll be talking about. Aside from that, if you like the video and would want me to do more content over this cursed game, then be sure to drop a like. Thank you. The first knockoff that I could find, and that I know of, was WorldBlocky.com. Not much is known about this one in particular, but it was apparently released in the late months of 2009. In August of that year, the first video of it was uploaded to YouTube, showcasing the site and its development stage. It's pretty obvious that WorldBlocky took heavy inspiration from the Roblox layout at the time. You had your profiles, the catalog, badges, friends, forums, all the basic stuff that you're going to see in the majority of Roblox knockoffs. In this development video, it does say that you're going to eventually be able to play games, but that never came around, unless you count this quote-unquote game from a video taken in February of 2010, where a cat follows your mouse or something. That was what you would get when clicking on the Games tab. To be fair though, I later came across this video in October 2009, just 4 months before this cat thing, that shows a variety of Flash games that you could play. You had your block and roll, cake quest, really interesting options. While researching for more information on WorldBlocky, I also dug up an old Flickr account that was used by an admin for the game. In their posts were pictures and concepts for player models, site layouts, and even site banners. It's in this one that you can see the owner of WorldBlocky, someone by the name of Blorgo. Not much else is known about this figure, but I thought it'd be worth mentioning. Now, that's as much information that I can really give over WorldBlocky. YouTube videos and conversations talking about the website would die out in the early months of 2010, which leads me to believe that WorldBlocky had a very short run in the history of Roblox knockoffs. But what's interesting is that during this time frame from late 2009 to early 2010, there would be an explosion of sites just like this one. I'm not even exaggerating, the next few ripoffs are nearly identical. There would be thefeed.net. This one would launch just days after the creation of WorldBlocky. The lone video on YouTube that captures its existence showcases their very high quality avatars, and that's probably the most notable thing to say about this one. In 2010, there would be Zorblox.com, and this one did have some creative aspects to it, like look at these little guys. You could even buy your own JPEG house and JPEG places to live, depending on how many coins you had. I'm not really sure how you would get coins on Zorblox, but it's cool nonetheless. There was a catalog, forums, a quirky page that had a list of things to do if you're bored. The games page had way more Flash games than WorldBlocky, so there's that. And lastly, your profile could be highly customizable. You could change your background color, your description, your mood, and I even noticed that there was a battle mode that you could toggle on and off. So I'm guessing that you could somehow battle other players, which could affect your win and loss record. I think Zorblox did some cool yet underwhelming stuff, but as most of these early Roblox knockoffs would do, this one would fade into obscurity. The next knockoff is arguably one of the most infamous of the bunch. This nuclear cockroach that never seems to die is WorldToBuild. Unlike the previous entries, WTB managed to get decent hype along with a semi-devoted player base. It all started when someone by the name Bailey would launch WorldToBuild.com in the late months of 2011. The first thing you may notice when looking at the site in its infancy is that the logo says WorldToBuild instead of using the number 2 like in the domain name. I just find that to be an odd choice. When looking at old gameplay from this time, we can see that they were doing the same things as other Roblox clones. There were forums, a catalog where users could upload custom clothing, and the ability to make friends. Because of how similar this one is to the original burst of Roblox-type websites, this is where I'll briefly explain what the SANS script is.
It makes me feel like I'm Sans.
No, not that SANS. SANS was an acronym for Social Avatar Network Script, and what this script does is allow the developer to create a website and layout just like Roblox. This would likely explain the epidemic of WorldBlockies and Zorbloxes. With that being said, WTB is often attributed for being the first SANS-based website, which I don't think is true, but I'd imagine it gets that reputation because it is the most popular site that uses the SANS script. What separates WorldToBuild from the rest is that this one gained much more popularity and notoriety than any other clone at this time. Something about the site made people intrigued, as it could have been the next big social browser game. But despite this, it also made people very angry. Because of its unapologetic resemblance to Roblox, players from there would take notice and let their feedback be known. Shortly after the launch of WorldToBuild, the Roblox community would band together and do things such as raiding their forums, making angry Reddit posts about how much WTB sucks, DDoSing the site, and more forum raiding. It wasn't long until their empire would come crashing down and the site would no longer exist after a few months of it ever being online. Before I continue, I thought I'd go over some of the information I found from an old blog spot for WorldToBuild. On here, you can find a contest that was held where users could create a logo for the blog. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone ever won, as this would be a pretty underwhelming design. There was apparently a job opening for an author's position, in which you will post a weekly blog post about news happening around the website. But what I find most fascinating on the blog is this right here, a supposed WorldToBuild game. Most of you guys have been worried about the game being fake and worrying about it never getting done. Get ready, because it's almost time for us to start playing. In a recent conversion with Bailey, he told me the graphics are done and it's almost ready. As some of you already know, WorldToBuild never ended up having any playable games. So seeing this blog posted on January 12th, 2012, it really made me wonder what happened to this lost artifact. By using the Wayback Machine, I went to the game development log page and came across more information regarding the game. Gathering everything I read on the page, I took away that there was a single and multiplayer project being developed by Bailey that ran off of the Lua programming language. It seemed to be a sandbox game that allowed players to script and add their own creations, something pretty much like Roblox or Gary's Mod. Bailey would also implement high-quality graphics, realistic water, an option for unique trees, and an option for 3D clouds. Outside of the 6 posts that were ever made on this lost game, there is no other details nor information about it ever being published. That would be the end of the original WorldToBuild.com, one of Roblox's most infamous competitors. These days, you can buy the domain for a whopping $3,395. Along with this, I have no idea whatever happened to Bailey, the mastermind behind it all, but I'm sure they could have never expected what came next with their failed project, WorldToBuild.net. 3 years after the original WTB would perish, a young teenager known as Telemus would get the idea to revive the infamous WorldToBuild. While I'm not sure what his intentions were with recreating something that already existed, some speculated that it was for fame, attention, or scamming purposes. Because by the time Telemus launched the website in February of 2015, many users were making accusations about him and his motives. Is it possible that this could be to steal Roblox accounts? I'm assuming they expect you to sign up with your Roblox username and password, because they made it look exactly like Roblox, and will then use it to steal your account. I confirmed so in my other comment. He will in fact steal your account if you do so. Yeah, I just got permabanned for harassment for messaging Telemus about stealing accounts. Now, despite the criticisms that Telemus would get, the site was a bit different from the original. The avatars now look like this, there was a playable game that I'll get into in a moment, and there's even a new logo. In response to the backlash, Telemus would go onto a Reddit post about WTB being a crappy Roblox knockoff, and he had this to say. WorldToBuild is no longer up as the new website. WorldToBuild is now being developed. Here's an image of the new site. Hopefully this will make the Roblox community realize that just because something looks similar does not mean it's a copy. Thinking something as such is just ignorant. The game and market items will be different. You will know if you sign up on the new website. There will not be things such as hats, but more like outfits and characters. Yes, you can make your own character and upload it for people to use. In the span of a month, Telemus brought back WorldToBuild, created a whole new website design, and then decided to rebrand to WorldToBuild under a new domain and aesthetic. Notably, this new era of WTB looked to bring in new players to play their new game. If you were ballsy enough to ever download the exe file onto your computer, this is what you'd get. The first ever public WorldToBuild game. There's literally nothing else to this, if you're not counting the malware that would sneak onto your computer after installing it. That's pretty much all Telemus's WTB ever had to offer. After 1 month of its existence in February 2015, it vanished into the void, never to be seen again. Until 2 years later.
sucked.
In February 2017, WorldToBuild.org would be birthed onto the internet by an apparent controversial figure named Anton. This WTB goes back to the original site layout, along with the original avatars. Out of all the ones I've covered so far, this one is the most underwhelming, as it doesn't provide any new features, it's just a crappy reboot of an already dead knockoff.
WorldToBlock sucks.
Surprisingly, it did stay online for nearly the entirety of 2017, with it eventually going away in December of that year. After the trilogy of failures was over with, people still continued to reboot the WTB legacy every couple of years. Finally, as of May 2025, when I'm recording this video, you can play WorldToBuild at WorldToBuild.org. With this one, there seems to be a small community of players that help develop this as some sort of passion project, and I find that pretty wholesome. There also seems to be a variety of playable multiplayer games, so it finally happened. WorldToBuild has playable games that may or may not still be a virus. There's only one way to find out. Go check it out and let me know. I'm sure if you've ever played Roblox for a long period of time, then you'd be familiar with BloxCity, one of the most popular games in the site's history. Well, long before it was released in 2016, the concept of BloxCity actually existed as one of those old sand-styled creations. Let's travel back to the early months of 2012. At this point, Alex Neutron, a former Roblox intern and longtime game developer, had already been a notable figure in Dynablox history. Despite having some of the most popular experiences on the site, something motivated Alex, along with his friend Seth, to create his own child-friendly social hangout. This would be none other than SocialMeeps. Launching somewhere around January to April of 2012, SocialMeeps took more inspiration from Club Penguin than it did Roblox, but the influence is still there. Players would be able to customize their ball, and there were even playable multiplayer maps. SocialMeeps wasn't too promising of a product, but it seemed to grow a decently sized community in the year-long run it had, as it would randomly get shut down in 2013. The game didn't come without controversy though, because players would draw the comparisons to Roblox, which can be taken as a negative, along with allegations about Alex Neutron stealing funding for the game. A popular YouTuber, Linkman99, made the following accusation. Just to add on, never forget he randomly shut down the BloxCity website game in like 2013 and kept/stole everyone's money they put into it. I lost like $1,000 and he never apologized. I don't know much else about these claims. Personally, I think Alex Neutron is a good guy, but an especially dedicated and passionate game developer. Whether or not he was trying to take over children's social gaming with SocialMeeps, I don't know what his true intentions were. Isaac Heimer is a name that'll commonly appear throughout the history of Roblox clones. He began his first project shortly after the popularity of the original WorldToBuild, in which he pretty much just took everything from that and rebranded it into Social Paradise. This never amassed into anything though, until the beginning of 2016, when Isaac created BloxCity. BloxCity ran from 2016, and I believe it ended sometime in the middle of 2017. Isaac didn't do anything too different from your average clone, but there was something appealing about it. It had a very sleek, minimalist design with nicely rendered models. I actually remember when this project got leaked to the Roblox forums, and the community had a lot of mixed emotions. There was a lot of people who already had some sort of vendetta against Mr. Heimer, maybe because of his history of creating shitty social hangouts, or his involvement in the April Fool's hacking attack back in 2012. And then there were younger, impressionable people like me who were excited to see what it could bring to the table. I'm not too sure when BloxCity went public, but I remember right away, I made as many accounts with different name snipes as I could, because that was the cool thing to do back then. I had at least like 5 to 10 profiles on there with unique usernames, with the intent of selling them whenever they'd inevitably take over Roblox in popularity. But as you could imagine, that never happened. As the months would go by, the BC player base would grow largely. There were seasonal events and even games. I actually don't remember if the games were any good. I just recall some joinable thing with a big green base plate. Before anyone knew it, BloxCity would lose its relevance and fade away in the first half of 2017. This wouldn't be the end of Isaac's story though, as BC would get a rebrand and turn into something larger, something called BrickPlanet. Before I get into that, I thought I'd mention that BloxCity actually got brought back in recent years, but it doesn't have any connection to Isaac Heimer. Just a month after its deletion, in July 2017, the BloxCity domain would direct you to BrickPlanet.com. I'm not entirely sure why the change took place, but it did. I personally never played or even knew about BrickPlanet during 2017, but it appeared to have the same look and feel as BloxCity. Everything was smooth sailing from there until August 2018. There would be an issue with not having enough moderation for the site, and because of this, inappropriate games and forum posts would become rampant, which led to Isaac Heimer becoming emotional and even contemplating retirement altogether. Then, in the final days of August, BrickPlanet would get hacked. Following this, the Discord server would be deleted and the site would get shut down. 1 month later though, in October, BrickPlanet, along with its Discord, would be reopened. To the community's dismay, NSFW images were quickly spammed on the Discord server, which led to that being shut down almost instantly after reopening. Not just this, but BrickPlanet would also be taken down again in November, presumably because of the constant trolling and hacking attacks. Following the next 6 years, the same pattern of events would continue happening. Isaac would shut down the site, and then it'd come back. It's a never-ending cycle. In 2025, you can make an account and browse through BrickPlanet as normal, although I read on the BP fandom page that playing games were at one point hidden behind a paywall, so beware of that if that's still a thing. Isaac's story ends here for now, and you honestly gotta respect the constant hustle of creating these social hangouts.
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy.
BrickHill was one of the most successful and infamous Roblox competitors in recent memory, gaining thousands of dedicated players along with a large catalog of cosmetics and playable games. It all started back in 2016, when a set of twins named Alex and Lucas Dunn decided to give a shot at making their own online platform, which was heavily inspired by Blockland, Legos, and that one other block game you may or not know about. Despite their influences that would model the look and feel of their site, they were initially motivated by the success of BloxCity, and had the idea of, if they can do it, we can do it better, and that's what they did. The name BrickHill comes from an area of their hometown of the same name, somewhere in Bedfordshire, England.
What you want, some?
Hey?
You want some?
Well, the old Supremo, wouldn't
You want some or what?
The site launched publicly in the early months of 2017 and quickly went from there. This would be a very important year, as BloxCity would shut down around this time, and some of the players from there would migrate to BrickHill. The community would continue growing as the months went on, and there was surprisingly lots to do both in-game and on the website. From monthly events to contests and all of that good stuff, BrickHill was honestly, at this point, one of the best alternatives to Roblox. By the end of 2017, it would even reach up to 10,000 members. But right as the year ended, Alex Dunn would make a post stating that his twin brother Luke had passed away at 16 years old due to natural causes. This would obviously upset the community greatly, but controversy would follow right after, as certain users would spam the acronym BLDN on the forums and on their Discord. BLDN unfortunately stood for Brook Luke D's Nuts. And it got to the point where if you said BLDN or Brick Luke D's Nuts, you would get automatically IP banned. As far as the passing of Brick Luke, I don't really know any other information. There's a lot of mystery about the situation, but I'll leave it at that out of respect. As the years went by, BrickHill became an established online platform to join and play games on. It was never an actual competitor to Roblox, but it was home to over 100,000 accounts and had a loyal following. Unfortunately for the community, their reputation would take a slight hit when Alex, also known as Space Builder, did something allegedly unspeakable in April of 2022. Former BrickHill staff members, Charisma, Yesin, and Ezra, would release a document allegedly exposing the BrickHill CEO of being a weirdo. The document supposedly contained dozens of Discord messages that showed Alex asking underage girls for CP. And I'm not talking about Carlos Prates. I'm personally not too sure on the validity of these claims, as Alex would quickly make a counter document that supposedly debunks everything made against him. I'm not too educated on this situation in particular to give an opinion, but it doesn't help that later in 2022, space builder Alex would actually do something unspeakable.
For you, a man from the United Kingdom has been arrested in Westlake after allegedly trying to meet up with a 16-year-old girl. In fact, Westlake police say this man, 21-year-old Alexander Dunn, traveled all the way from the United Kingdom and was discovered with a teenager at Crocker Park.
On October 24th of 2022, Alex would be arrested after meeting up with a 16-year-old girl while he was 21 years old. Essentially, Alex traveled from the United Kingdom all the way to Ohio to quote-unquote meet up with online friends. During his short time in the US of A, he coincidentally ran into someone he knew from the internet, and that person happened to be an underage girl, or at least that's what Alex had told the police. The information that's fairly known about this is that Alex had Ubered this underage girl to his hotel room, and her parents would go on to say that she had been missing for 2 whole days. Eventually, on October 24th, Alex was caught and arrested outside of a Barnes & Noble. Promptly, he'd be arrested and then held with a $50,000 bond. Along with this, he would be forced to surrender his passport for good reason, and the reputation of him and BrickHill would never be the same. Shortly after that, BrickHill released a decent statement, and Alex would lose all of his titles as CEO and administrator, with his account being terminated. For the aftermath of what happened to Alex's arrest, I'm going to read the following paragraph taken from BrickHill.fandom.com. After Alex's first court appearance in November 2022, Space Builder was facing 19 different charges, with all but a few of them being related to possessing child-oriented material. However, all but 2 of the charges he was facing were dropped in December 2022, with Space Builder pleading guilty to an interference of custody charge, and the charge of possessing criminal tools in what appeared to be an apparent plea bargain. The terms involved Space Builder surrendering several different devices to the court and being given a no-contact order with the victim. He was then allowed to return to his home in the United Kingdom. After returning back to the UK, Alex had little to zero online presence, but he ended up making a public response/apology in March 2023. This would be the last year the site would run, as it would end in a battle over BrickHill's legal ownership. Basically, the staff team wanted to continue the site, but without the presence and ownership of Alex. Even though his account was deleted, and he gave up his position of CEO to another individual, Alex still technically owned BrickHill. Anyway, a solution was never reached, which led to the entire staff team resigning altogether, and the ship would sink by the time August rolled around. I personally never played BrickHill, but I can appreciate it for what it was, and it's definitely one of the most accomplished alternatives to Roblox. Cubash was a website that was made in 2018 and eventually met its demise in 2020. If you go to the Cubash website in current time, you'll be met with a page that says, "This site can't be reached." Despite this, you can go on a website called CubeSaw and look at what the website used to be. From what is shown, there was once a very active forum community with a variety of subsections. From the general discussions of stuff to telling stories, there were a lot of ways to get a conversation going. Something I'll give credit to Cubash for is its lack of moderation, and the usage of the First Amendment. People could truly say anything here and express their truest of feelings. There was a store page, with many of its items being almost identical to classic Roblox ones, but they had some original designs like these mustaches. From the gameplay I could find on YouTube, there weren't really any games with an objective, but rather some servers where people could join and just talk. Anyway, from what I could find, Cubash was made by a person called Iceon. Over the course of 2 years, this person would create the entire Cubash website, and honestly, it's pretty impressive. Despite everything being pretty unoriginal and bare bones, it is credible that this one guy could make an entire Roblox clone. But is it really that impressive when you can copy the layout of an already simple and existing website? I'll leave that up to you to decide. That being said, the community of Cubash was pretty toxic, and due to the maker of Cubash receiving death threats for not updating the website frequently, he decided to delete the Cubash Discord and abandon the project entirely. There was a short revival in 2022, where a couple of posts were made on Twitter making it seem like there was this big comeback, but once again, it'd go dark shortly after. For the next entry, we have WorldToBuild. And thankfully, this one has no relation to the much more infamous WorldToBuild. This website started back in 2018 by a group of 4 young developers. All of them had grown up playing Roblox, Garry's Mod, and Minecraft, so they wanted to create something similar to those IPs. The project would quickly build and grow into WorldToBuild, and it'd be released to the public on December 30th, 2018. Unlike a lot of these quote-unquote knockoffs, I personally think WTB had its own original look and feel. Like, just by looking at it, I wouldn't think it's a direct Roblox copycat. It's definitely inspired by a lot of its aspects, but it's not being disrespectful about it. Throughout WorldToBuild's existence, you could make your own games, play a variety of different games, and customize your character. Looking at some gameplay videos on YouTube, some of these games are actually pretty nice to look at. It's actually pretty refreshing because it's not just some 2006 block game emulator. WTB would even have quite a large staff, full of different coders and software engineers, and the ceiling seemed high for everyone on the team, until it didn't, as everything would come to an end sometime in 2024. When going to WorldToBuild.com in present day, you'd be greeted with a page that talks about the site's history. This is not a fun thing to admit, and it's actually very difficult when you've invested countless hours of blood, sweat, and tears into a labor of love like WorldToBuild was for us. We didn't have the time, resources, and, at times, the energy to keep pushing the various approaches we felt would benefit the game. Ultimately, we decided that WorldToBuild was in fact still our dream game as both developers and players. It was never meant to be more than what it was at this moment. It was never meant to get millions of dollars of investment, only to be held down by the thumb of some corporation. It was never meant to have billions of players, games, and items in the shop, only to lack the magic and character that we strive to create all these years. It was never meant to be a 9-to-5 for our wonderful development team in order to simply pay the bills. WorldToBuild was exactly what it should have been, and it wasn't meant to happen any other way. WorldToBuild was a home to thousands of players that logged on to make something awesome to show off. WorldToBuild was a community of friends sharing a creative space. WorldToBuild was an independent game that taught more to our team about development, teamwork, and humility than a decade of anything else could have. WorldToBuild was a labor of love. WorldToBuild was our dream game to develop. WorldToBuild was a sandbox game that brought the magic of creation to the next generation of developers, and that's all we ever wanted. Thank you for playing our game. The last game I'll be covering is Polytoria, originally known as Superium, and before that, Bloxtopia. It all started back in 2019, when someone called Willem Steller had an old-styled Roblox emulator called Bloxtopia. There's a ton of websites and emulators out there that replicate this nostalgic look and feel by using old Roblox clients, basically giving new players the chance to go back in time and play old Roblox. Bloxtopia was no different than any of these old Roblox simulators, until Willem Steller decided to make this into his own project. By the end of 2019, Bloxtopia had gained a couple thousand players, and would rebrand into Superium. Then, for whatever reason, a year after being renamed the first time, Superium would be turned into Polytoria. I personally think that Bloxtopia was the most marketable and memorable name of the bunch, but I can see how it's a bit generic, I don't know. When doing research on the history of this entry, I got a lot of information from the Polytoria wiki page, but from the years 2021 to 2023, there's nothing to go off of, so forgive me if I'm missing out on any important lore or events. There's honestly not much to talk about for this one. While I don't understand why the people on here wouldn't just play Roblox instead, because it's pretty much the same thing, if not better, here are the things I do like about Polytoria. I like the customization of a person's profile, along with the information tab. I think it's cool that you can post images to your page, along with having a public net worth. It's always nice to see the forums up and running, as I was an avid user of the Roblox forums back in the day. Unfortunately, I've recognized some complaints about the threads on here being very dry and sort of a ghost town these days. Overall, I can admire the time and effort it takes to create a project like Polytoria. While it is almost a one-to-one replica of Roblox, it does take a lot of work to put it all together, especially when adding a bit of originality. Sadly, by the looks of it though, there isn't much going on to a passerby like me, as the games are empty and I'd rather just hop on the Cheez-It game. With that said, I do think it's good to have an alternative to things, like maybe there's Roblox players who are just tired of playing with iPad kids, so they need a break to hop on some Polytoria, or maybe someone gets banned on Roblox for using it to kidnap children, so now they go to Polytoria to execute their sick, twisted plans on there. If you've made it to the end of the video, then thank you very much. I've actually had the idea to make this one since 2022, so it's a pretty big relief that I've finally gotten it out. I'm not sure how many of you guys know this, but I grew up playing Roblox in the early 2010s, and I have so many future video ideas just about the golden days of this blocky game. Hopefully you guys also want me to make more Roblox videos. They should be on the way if this does good. Thank you to everybody who makes me the coolest fan art, and here is a special shout out to everyone on my Patreon. Six Eyeing, Basmic, Bella M, Big Jickle, Dusty Antler, SO Boomin, Evan W, Eyeball Dude, 4 for Color, Jera, Josh S, Josh Wynn, Landon Rodriguez, LeBron James Hairline, Lottie Dottie, Mommy Trash Sack, Matt Sat on a Cat, Miko, Mustlord, Osman Mad For Real, Primavera, RBC Denson, Matt McCusker, Shinshiro Saito, I don't know how to say that one, Shiny Breakson, Takai Mirasaki, and Teeth Consumer.